guys, and many thanks for joining me. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Kat, and I like to talk about true crime, conspiracies, and all sorts of related things. Please don't forget to make sure you hit the big red subscribe button below, and also make sure you hit the notification bell so you are the first one to know about any new videos I upload. For my returning subscribers and viewers, I would like to thank you all so much for all the lovely comments I always read from you and from the continuous support you are showing me. This is what keeps me and my channel going. Thank you so much. Before we get started, as you might have noticed, my setup is different. I've recently moved from one house to another. I still didn't manage to set up my studio, so Carla, my mannequin, is not here yet. I'm just doing a video as as quick as I can, so I'm still trying to figure out where my studio is going to be, so bear with me. For now, this is it. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about Stephen Birch in the Madeleine Mccann investigation. But before we get started, here is the disclaimer. I do not mean to be disrespectful to anyone I talk about in today's video. The video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information I collect is from the internet. I compile this information, make a video, and from this you guys are more than welcome to draw your own conclusions. Thank you. Okay, let's jump straight in. In July 2012, South African businessman Stephen Birch, after 2 years of investigation and an initial cost to himself of around £50,000, discovered something was buried beneath the Murat rear gravel driveway. The driveway was built in the early 2008 and is the second driveway on the property called Casa Liliana. The property, owned by an initial suspect in the case, Robert Murat, is located 130 meters, 426 feet from holiday apartment 5A Ocean Club in Praia da Luz. Stephen's findings made world headlines in 255 mainstream newspapers around the world. Despite the findings and photos also appearing 18 times in Portugal's largest newspaper, Correio da Manhã, and Stephen petitioning Portugal's Prime Minister and Attorney General, the Portuguese government refused to dig up the Murat driveway. 5 international experts in the use of ground-penetrating radar equipment have all examined scans taken off the Murat driveway by Stephen using a Mala ground-penetrating radar machine and have recommended excavating the driveway immediately. Stephen Birch became intrigued in Madeleine Mccann's case after watching Gonzalo Amaral's Truth of the Lie documentary. On the 13th of September 2012, Stephen Birch appeared on 2 Oceans Vibe Radio, where he talked about his belief into what happened with Madeleine Mccann. He agrees with Amaral's findings, up to the point where Madeleine fell off the sofa, broke her neck, but he believes she was moved and her body buried the same night. He also mentions that Amaral's theory of Madeleine being transported in the Mccann's hire car 25 days after Maddie's disappearance, where DNA was found, was the biggest mistake Amaral and the PJ did in the investigation. Oh, my space buns are not equal. I can tell, I can feel. Oh, who cares anyway? So for today's video, I thought I should arm myself with a huge mug of coffee. Of course, it's coffee, always coffee, right? And now, the bombshell. Stephen Birch also goes to accuse the frustrated Portuguese police of planting DNA evidence in the hire car. There's an emphasis on frustrated. He actually says this word. And the reason I believe he says it is to somehow point out the reasoning behind the PJ alleged evidence planting. The case has been going for some time. The PJ spent a lot of time trying to find out what happened. Amaral believed the parents were involved, so he thought planting DNA in the car is not such a big deal, right? And this, in Stephen's view, led to diplomatic tension between Portugal and the UK. And that's when Gordon Brown got involved, made arrangements with the Portuguese Prime Minister, and the case got closed. Well, not exactly closed, more likely shelved. This is what Stephen Birch, in my opinion, is trying to highlight in his interview. Stephen Birch is not a qualified investigator as such. He's, so to speak, a wannabe investigator. Just like me and you and, really everyone else who's trying to make sense of what happened to Madeleine Mccann. He analyzed and studied the case, the PJ files, the findings, the evidence, and formed his own hypothesis into the case. However, without trying to critique him or criticize him, I found him, if I'm honest, a bit arrogant in his interview. Obviously, this is my opinion. It felt to me like he thought that his attention to detail and upbringing and the will to finish off any project he starts made him better than the Portuguese police and more qualified in the sense that, according to him, he solved the case. Stephen Birch was of the belief Madeleine's body could either be buried in the botanical gardens or on Murat's property. They were both in very close proximity to apartment 5A. After consulting an expert in the field, Stephen was advised a ground-penetrating radar would prove if indeed Madeleine's body was buried there. He got trained by the same expert in using the radar. He learned for 2 months how to use the radar. He then took the machine to a graveyard where he underwent training to detect bodies. I am leaving the link to the podcast in the description below if you want to listen to the radio interview. And in another interview, Stephen said he traveled to London to meet his attorney or lawyer, solicitor, and hire a ground-penetrating imaging device. He had a device delivered to Portugal. Once he got to Portugal, he illegally entered the property at least 5 times at night to use the radar in search for the remains. His scans show a cavity and an object in the cavity. The cavity is 400 to 600 millimeters under the driveway on the property. Stephen claims that the location of the cavity is consistent with previous investigations findings. He allegedly spent around £50,000 and 15 months to produce the evidence contained in a 12,000-page report. He said it was an emotional journey that kept developing as he was involved. He was contacted by Scotland Yard, who have discussed his findings. However, the Portuguese authorities closed the case or shelved the case, and he said they are caught up in judicial issues. He's never been in contact with the family and wants to keep it that way as he is operating independently. He also said he needed to get closure on that particular property. According to Stephen, he went to Portugal with his own team, which helped with surveillance and putting the operation together. Now comes the question of why didn't the McCanns want to hear about Stephen Birch's findings? In effect, he did find something there. If anything, one would expect they would, at least give it a second thought, right? Any parent with a missing child would pursue any possibility if he would help finding their child. But of course, not the McCanns, right? Are you even surprised? It's not even surprising, really. Now, you might argue that if the police were not willing to pursue this further, the McCanns didn't really have a choice in the matter. But on this one, I will disagree. If they had so much money to spend on so-called investigators to pursue all sorts of leads just, for the sake of it, surely they must have had enough money to get a team to look into it further, of course, if Murat would have agreed, right? But I think with an incentive, it could have been done. In my opinion, honestly, everybody has a price. Yes, Casa Liliana was his mother's property, but it could have been achieved if they were willing to do so. If you think about it, in theory, wouldn't it be quite clever for someone to bury a body there when it was already searched twice by the PJ previously? Nothing was found and Robert Murat was cleared as a suspect. It would be, as they say, hidden in plain sight and no one would suspect. It certainly is doable the way I see it, just the same as I really do believe Robert Murat was made a scapegoat, or he might have agreed to be made a scapegoat. These people knew exactly how it will go because in their group there's lawyers as well. the McCanns had a whole legal team. They knew damn well, in my opinion, what will happen if the police get their attention to Murat. There'd be no proof against him, and of course he'll eventually be cleared, but it was enough for the heat to be taken off of them, and I've covered this in so much detail in my previous videos. And it worked, right? Murat was cleared, and on top of that he made millions himself from the libel cases he's won. The heat was taken off the McCanns, although never cleared in Portugal as suspects. Robert Murat was considering suing Stephen Birch for trespassing. However, I'm not sure if he ever did anything. I wasn't able to find any more information about this. Anyway, this is what Francisco Pagarit, Robert Murat's lawyer, had to say, and I quote, "We are looking at what was said, analyzing the statements that were made, and then I will have a meeting with my client so we can make a decision. Suing is a situation to consider. It remains an open hypothesis." End of quote. And then we have another tweet from 2012 saying, and I quote, "As of 10:30 a.m. this morning, I received a call from Portugal advising me that Robert Murat has consented to me digging up his driveway to ascertain whether the remains of Madeleine Mccann lie buried beneath it. A formal letter will be emailed to me today. Mr. Murat's attorney has advised that as part of the negotiations, Mr. Murat will undertake to withdraw all charges against me for trespassing. Legal documentation would need to be formalized. A third party is currently acting as an intermediary in the negotiations and will own the media rights to the entire operation. They have advised me that they will put a helicopter in the air above Murat's house to protect the airspace from rival newspaper groups. It is estimated that the excavation of the Murat driveway will be viewed by over 1 billion people over a week." End of quote. Again, I'm saying I'm not sure if Murat ever sued Birch or if Birch ever dug up the driveway on Murat's property. Strangely, like I said before, I couldn't really find much information about it. Stephen Birch also contacted Anthony Bennett on various occasions asking for legal advice. Birch was very persistent in informing the twins of Madeleine's body and of what he thinks happened. He planned on contacting their school and the twins as well, released t-shirts and promotional material to get the twins' attentions, Madeleine Mccann's brothers. This is a letter from November 2015 sent to Tony Bennett by Stephen Birch, and I quote, "For the purposes of asking you this question, can we put all differences aside pertaining to our beliefs regarding what happened to Madeleine, or whether my actions pertaining to informing the McCann siblings of Madeleine's possible burial site is right or wrong? Please only give me a legal answer to my legal question. I am familiar with South African law but have limited knowledge on UK law. Here is my question. I have over several months written to all 8 partners of Carter Rock and advised them that I would be informing Sean and Emily McCann that their sister lies possibly buried under the Murat rear gravel driveway. I have furthermore confirmed in correspondence to Carter Rock's 8 partners that should they fail to respond to my emails, it can only be assumed that they are in agreement for me to proceed to inform the sibling. Under UK law, when we inform the underage siblings, does Carter Rock still have grounds to bring a legal action against me given the above? Your professional legal opinion would be appreciated. Yours sincerely, Stephen D. Birch." End of quote. Tony Bennett's reply was, and I quote, "If you were thinking of informing the twins by letter, your letter would of course be intercepted by the McCanns, and the twins would never see it. So that would be a waste of your time, effort, and postage costs. If you attempted to inform them by any other means, I believe you could potentially be arrested for any one of the following: threatening behavior, breaches of the Public Order Act 1986, and anti-harassment and or anti-stalking legislation." With reference to the Public Order Act 1986, look this up here, and Bennett is giving Birch a link to Wikipedia, where the Public Order Act is being mentioned. And carefully note the following. Section 4, fear or provocation of violence. Section 4A, intentional harassment, alarm or distress. Section 5, harassment, alarm or distress. I need hardly tell you that all of us over here who have read about your idea of confronting the twins have recoiled on reading it. You would have no support for what you have in mind. And if you are to pursue your obsession about the body being under Mr. Murat's driveway, then you'll have to think about other ways of doing it. Tony Bennett, end of quote. To which Birch replies, and I quote, "Thank you for your reply to my legal question. Your reference to various UK law is noted. However, you fail to take into consideration that Carter Ruck have on several occasions by email been advised by me, of me and my team's future action to inform the McCann siblings, and by failure to respond, by implication Carter Ruck are in agreement with my action to inform the siblings of Madeleine's possible burial site. In South African law, the judge will confront the attorney firm and ascertain why they failed to place on record that they objected to the siblings being informed. It will go a long way in mitigation of any potential sentence. Lastly, Sean and Emily and the schools they attend will be advised of Madeleine's possible burial site, not through convention channels of communications. Also, please consider that as from 1st of September 2016, the siblings will have full access to all forms of social media. Your legal opinion will be appreciated. Yours sincerely, Stephen D. Birch." End of quote. In the same year, 2015, Stephen Birch announced he was giving up the case due to threat on his life. Let's look at Stephen Birch's video explaining his findings.
My name is Stephen Birch. I've conducted my own independent investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine Mccann, who disappeared from Praia da Luz on the 3rd of May 2007. I travelled to Praia da Luz with my team, and from the 16th of June to the 28th of June conducted surveillance of the property known as Casa Leona and owned by Jenny Murat. Portuguese and British police initially searched the property known as Casa Leona, but were unsuccessful in finding the infant's remains. Entering the property and using a ground-penetrating Marler machine, I established that the infant was buried approximately 500 millimeters below the surface of the newly constructed driveway and next to a row of uneven trees.
This is the most significant scan taken below the Murat driveway. The top left-hand corner of the scan indicates that it was taken at 9 minutes past 5 and 6 seconds. The horizontal scale indicates the movement of the machine across the ground in meters, whereas the vertical scale shows the depth at which the objects are located beneath the ground. Clearly evident in this scan are 3 parabola, 1, 2 and 3, which indicate that a cavity exists below the driveway and an object is located within that cavity. You will note that the horizontal lines are broken up and are not parallel with each other. The entire picture indicates that the ground below surface level was disturbed using a spade. This scan is overwhelming proof that an object lays buried below the Murat driveway and necessitates that the Portuguese police excavate the driveway immediately.
Due to the fact that I trespassed on private property and was unable to dig through the driveway, having a hard subbase, I have no option but to release this footage on my return to Cape Town, South Africa. I am asking the Portuguese police to immediately obtain a search warrant, excavate the rear driveway, and exhume the infant's remains.
Sadly, as far as I know, nothing came of his request for the ground to be dug up. In all fairness, Birch did waste more than 2 years of his life, I believe, in trying to find out what happened. He spent his own money on the radar, traveling, his team, and so on. Even though some people say he did it for the fame or, because he's gone mad, he still spent his money, his time, and you know, he put everything else aside to try and find out where Madeleine's body was. It's a shame really that nothing came of it. That radar picked up something, and it's a pity we'll never find out what it was. It would have been so easy for Murat and the McCanns to accept the dig. If they didn't have anything to hide, it would have been in their best interest to accept the dig on Murat's property. Some people say Stephen Birch was being paid by the McCanns. I am not quite sure what to make of that. I mean, I have tried to find a connection in some way to the McCanns, you know, like I do in my other videos, but as far as I'm concerned, there's no connection really. The most recent information I found about Stephen Birch is that in April 2020, he appeared in court for allegedly spreading fake news about COVID-19. Birch allegedly posted a video on his social media pages telling South Africans that government coronavirus testing kits were contaminated and could infect people. He was criminally charged for spreading fake news according to South African law. And as much as I would have loved to have more info regarding Stephen Birch in connection with Madeleine McCann's investigation, that's about everything I was able to find about him online. So we've got to the end of the video. Now, before I go, I would like to ask you, what do you think, you know, Stephen Birch's position around all this is? Do you really think that he had somehow connection to the McCanns, or was he just, you know, one of those wannabe detectives or investigators who was just, you know, trying to do the right thing and trying to find out what happened to Madeleine McCann, and possibly at some point he became so obsessed by it that he just couldn't let it go, and maybe he was convinced that if he takes the steps he did, such as, you know, going to Portugal, you know, breaking into Murat's property, scanning the ground with the radar, maybe he will be able to find out what happened. And in the end, I say it again, it's such a shame really that nothing, absolutely nothing came of it. He spent tons of money on his own with this, and he ended up, you know, withdrawing from the whole investigative side of it because of alleged threats on his life. I mean, I don't understand it. It can happen. It's not, you know, it's not something unfamiliar with the Madeleine McCann case. We know also about Brenda Leyland, so it's not, I can't say that he would be exaggerating in this respect. However, I do find him a bit too obsessed, if you will. Maybe like he's not willing to let it go, like he's making it personal about, you know, about himself, as in he's really trying to prove a point to himself. Anyway guys, please let me know what you think in the comments below. And I've reached the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you think that you found any new info in the video, please don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button below if you haven't subscribed already. Also make sure you hit the notification bell so you are notified of any new videos I upload. Like and share the video. Thank you so much. Take care and stay safe. Bye bye.